obstetrician, I did about 18,000 deliveries in the 35 years that I worked as a clinician. I don't know them exactly. I didn't count them all. But what I know exactly, and I will never forget, are the 72 women who died in my hands. Many of them due to like hemorrhage, and they came too late. So one of the factors is not only the disease, we fill in the medical reason. Yes, she died of bleeding. But the main cause is actually, why did she die of bleeding? Because she came too late. The 3 delays, she didn't recognize, or she was somewhere in a rural village, no transport, no money to pay for transport, and many of these other things. The drugs arrived too late, patients arrived too late. And this is where I used to work, still working. Part of it, a girl, 14 years old, in the middle there, covered with a blanket. She was 14 and 8 orphans, the oldest of 6 siblings. The parents died. We had in those times, typical, some of you will remember the 8 orphan villages. The grandparents took care of the children, but if there were too many, these young siblings came to the cities. And a girl of 14, pregnant, 3 days in labor. And when she came, she was already, the baby had died, and she died 10 minutes later. Stillbirth, also a daily practice. A shortage of everything, materials. We are using the gloves over and over again, sharing beds. Things have improved. And there are 2 key interventions. There are many interventions that you can do, but 2 key interventions are quality of care in childbirth. Most countries, they have managed, thanks to programs, monitoring, research, to show that if women go earlier for antenatal care, they are better off. So in many countries, major changes, they go earlier in pregnancy and more of them. So that is good. However, they go to deliver in facilities, but the facilities have not really improved. So the same 2 nurses who before took care of like 3 deliveries a day now take care of 5 to 6, but they are still, so many governments have not taken that into account. And number 2 is family planning, and that's where I want to focus on, and I will rush you through the family planning. So quality of care is actually, as I said, a triple return on investment, because most women die during childbirth. Babies die during childbirth. Being born is the most dangerous event in your life. Many of them don't survive, but that's really a very dangerous day. We worked, when I was at WHO, we worked a lot onto quality of care and new guidelines where not only the provision of care was taken into account, but also the how do people experience care? Are they coming? Do they like to come to the facilities, or are they scared away? I also talked about technology, and there is now, like WHO, when we were there, we made a guideline that every pregnant woman everywhere in the world should have the right to at least 1 ultrasound. I hope you are familiar with the technology of ultrasound in pregnancy, ecography, which can really make a big difference. Especially when you do it early in pregnancy, you then can calculate exactly how far this pregnancy is, etc. But having this WHO recommendation that we wrote from the mountains in Geneva takes time, but it's much easier than implementing this in a rural area in Kenya or wherever. And that's what we have tried to do now, trying to set up a research program. How is it feasible? What is needed? The technology, the training of the nurses is something substantial. And you cannot train all the nurses. That's impossible. It should be part of their service, pre-service training. But what we see now is kind of the entrance of artificial intelligence, that even an untrained person, you don't need to be a trained nurse, could learn how to do a sweep, up, down, left, right. All these images are then stored in computers, and it's the computer who helps you to come to the best section to then do the ultrasound. This is all new, but artificial intelligence is also can be very useful there, and we need more research in that area. So that's what you can see us doing here with kind of portable ultrasounds, machines that you don't have the heavy machine, you can put it in a backpack, and then, but it's still kind of in development, of course. So we'll have to see if it is as good or maybe even better than training your healthcare workforce. Another research program that we have set up in rural Kenya, in Kilifi, is actually, we want to follow a cohort of pregnant women, right? During pregnancy, see what are not only the biomedical factors of poor pregnancy outcome, like preterm birth or intrauterine death or small for dates, not only the biomedical factors, but also environment. So we have a component health geography to look at pollution, to look at the habits like indoor cooking. Does it have an impact on pregnancy next to the socioeconomic and clinical factors? So we have a lot of samples stored for all kind of microbiome and other. So that is one. That is about the pregnancy. Now, very quickly, family planning, actually. And why do I bring it here? And we discussed already with Prof. Lies and others yesterday that, you know, we talk about partnerships and the SDG program and working all together. And we have improved a lot and learned a lot, but I try also, I'm not a climate change expert, of course, like all of us, we try to follow that. But if you go to the conferences on climate change, now the COP27, I have not seen anything on family planning. Whereas population growth, it's one of the major problems that we have with our land or everything. So, and that's not new. But family planning has been neglected for many, many years. And in 2012, we had again kind of the revival of the family planning with the then director of the WHO, because we know, I come back to the ecology later, but just again, we know that 1 death in 3 could be avoided if all women had access to contraceptives, right? Pregnancy deaths. Don't forget also the many girls who die of abortion, unsafe abortion, still a big, big problem. And I have never met anyone who is in favor of abortion. But reality is that abortions happen, and if you don't prevent it by providing contraceptives, or we don't offer safety, that we see these young girls dying. And in some of our hospitals on Mondays, because they have their botched abortions on Friday nights, and then they come in, if they survive, on Sunday, Monday with serious complications. The unmet need is huge. When we started in 2012, 222 million women want to use contraception but don't have access. That was in 2012. So an ambitious program was set up, you know, for many reasons, for reducing maternal mortality, but also women's choice, rights, a number of reasons why we wanted to have this program up and run. It has been funded by governments, by UN, by Gates Foundation and others. So progress has been made, but not enough again. Very aspirational, of course, because the ambition was to reduce the 222 million women unmet need by half. And we haven't reached it, but we have learned a lot, because if we could reduce it, then we would have 80 million unintended pregnancies, unsafe abortions, and maternal death. So here you see these figures again quickly. Also less babies dying, of course, because of better pregnancy outcome. This is not the first time I present this like something new, but look at examples from the US, Sri Lanka and Sweden. We did a kind of country case studies, And already in 1955, it was clear that introducing family planning and scaling up midwifery, even in US and in Sweden, Sweden was the best student in the class, had a remarkable reduction on maternal mortality. Investments cases have been made and shown that the most cost-effective way to reduce maternal mortality is actually family planning. Many more advantages: the ability to plan your pregnancy, to plan your family, is really an equitable functioning of women in society, contributes. Educational attainment, increased economic participation, impact on population, and impact on ecology and environment. And that, unfortunately, is not clear enough. We think technology, and we need technology to have a cleaner world, but we also need to think about this. Now, it took the world up to 1994, the International Conference of Population and Development, where for the first time in history, the world, all the countries, signed reproductive rights. And what are reproductive rights? The right of a woman to decide when she wants to get pregnant, with whom, and how many pregnancies. Now, most of you here will say, well, of course, that's basic, isn't it? But it's not a reality for many, many children, many girls and women in the world. And so that was in 1994. 2019, we had a revision, kind of an assessment, 25 years later, after this land-breaking conference. Where are we? Parts of the world have improved, but many have received pushback, right, on the rights agenda. So we are not there yet. And this is one of the results also I think this is now a picture from Kenya, but you can see it in many countries, where teenage pregnancy, also with COVID, has gone up substantially. Violence against women is a shadow epidemic of COVID, but this one here in the class in Kilifi, you have like 23% of the young girls who are pregnant. They are 13, 14, and even younger, and they are pregnant, children with children. So this we should avoid. Family planning. I'm not going to read all this, but just, you can read it for yourself, just a few citations, not recent ones, as you can see from Aristotle, but who told already about population growth, poverty, and so on. Einstein, overpopulation, serious threat to the health of people. Then the father of the Green Revolution, again. That 20 years ago, people who were talking about ecology and environment were more thinking also about overpopulation. And now it has become a very sensitive topic. Of course, we don't want to go the one-child policy that China did. But if we could only provide family planning to those who are looking for it, to the 222 in 2012. And today, we have 265 million. Did our program fail? Well, we didn't reach the goals, but also the population is growing. So there are more and more young girls and women who are actually in need of that. Again, those who fail to see that population growth and climate change are two sides of the same coin. So I'm not bringing anything new, but it seems to be forgotten. We all know, of course, Sir David Attenborough again. He is the one, since many, many years, who is telling us that the human population, that we should do something about it. Minister of Zimbabwe in 85. You cannot grow if your population growth is so high. And then that is remarkable. Karan Singh, professor, philosopher, and also minister, who said in 74, leading the Indian delegation, he said then, and he was a real advocate, we need to invest in development. We invest in development, contraceptives, it will come automatically. But the same Karen Singh 20 years later said, well, you know, it's better to invest in contraception and development will follow. So, some more, I'm not going because of time, I'm not going to read them all. Kofi Annan was also a very strong defender of the human rights agenda and the family planning. And then we all, of course, know Al Gore's An Inconvenient Truth, where he also mentioned the impact of population. James Grant, Undersecretary General, states even that family planning could bring more benefits to more people at a lower cost than much of our single technologies. And it's not one or the other. I think we should invest in both. Hillary Clinton. We also have some publications around that. And it's not only about our ecological footprint. I mean, we know there's discussions about the footprint of somebody in Europe or US higher than in many African settings. That's true. And of course, development comes also with, you know, people want to have comfort, etc. But it's also about the number of people and the land and the forest and deforestation and all this problems. So the world population has reached already 8 billion, right? And we see where we have the largest populations. This is a kind of a funny thing that Malcolm Potts from Population, he was saying, you know, look at what does it cost to the cost versus ton of carbon averted with solar panels, windmills, and condoms. So you can see where you have to invest. So then my last slide, I think, or last but one, now we are in what? In the SDGs, all right? And SDGs is known by, for me, one of the most important, the 17 SDGs are important, but the number 17 is about partnerships. We realize that we cannot move it if we go in our own silos, health and water, and so we have to work together. But that means, and this is a call from also the experts in ecology and in environment, please always bring that factor of population, however sensitive it is. But there are ways, even if we say those women who really want to avoid a new pregnancy, they have the right to do, let's support them, let's invest in that, we would make a major difference. So sectorial, multi-sectorial, we are multi-sectorial, but we have a blind eye for some aspects. And I think, as I always cite this, it takes two to make a child, although that's not, with our technology nowadays, it's not really necessary, but usually it takes two to make a child and a village to raise a child. And I think we are all part of that global village, and it's our responsibility to take part of the earth and the humans, the mankind on this earth. And this is one of my lovely pictures of Pumani maternity, where we have about all these babies after 2 hours. Every 2 hours we see this. And this is the end of my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Timmerman, for this very important presentation and topic. And now I open the floor for at least 2 or 3 questions. Yes, Professor Dakora.
Thank you very much for a very interesting talk. I must admit, I'm one of your students. I did not see population growth as a major factor. I've seen it from a distance, but now it's closer to me. The question I would like to raise, actually, there are 2 issues, one of which perhaps I'm a protagonist of your course, and I'll state that first. I take the view that when politicians speak in Africa in particular, You often hear about by 2050, Africa will be the youngest, continent on the planet, and is seen in positive light, as if automatically by 2050, by having a lot of youngsters across Africa, it translates into development. Yet concurrently, the same governments are not providing quality education. They are not skilling up the youth. They are not doing anything. They just said back. I guess it's an excuse not to do anything. Say, don't worry, 2050, Africa will be a paradise. And that's not going to happen. In fact, I think we're going to end up in the worst case scenario. And I hope it doesn't happen. But if the governments don't do anything, I predict it will be so chaotic in Africa that nobody will want to live here. And so I take your point from that perspective, and that there has to be a pushback on this rhetoric by the African politicians. I'm African myself, and I hear all sorts of funny rumors. Bill Gates wants to control population in Africa. I'm not worried about that. I'm worried about the reality. If there were to be quality education, skills for people in Africa, I can be made to understand that come 2050, Africa could be a heaven on earth. But the rate at which we are going, where actually value in education is going down, I don't see that happening. How do you stand up on your 2 feet to counter this argument by saying to African leaders, I hear what you're saying, but these are the flaws in your argument? I know people may call you other names who are taking comfort in not wanting to debate this matter. I personally don't agree. I don't think it's true. And it's not going to happen if the government don't invest. That's my first point. Second one relates to what's happening in places like the US, where they want to reverse certain laws that are so crucial for women's rights, girls' rights in relation to sexuality. And they throw in religion into that equation, followed by law, depending on who is coming from which side of the political divide. And that has its own negative impact in the developing world. Because if America doesn't see reason to control population growth, why should you stop us from exploiting? How do you balance those things, given that you have such strong passion for what you are saying? Thank you.
Well, thank you, Mr. President, for these really important questions. And you are asking me, how would I stand? I think I would stand behind you because you are an African. And, sometimes it's not well taken if a non-African is coming to talk. So we have to do this together. But you are absolutely right. There are, in some countries, it could be religious reasons, could be cultural, right? I don't believe in this kind of cultures, but you're right. We present it as a kind of the fact that there are so many young people, it's a youth dividend in Africa. It could be a youth disaster if they don't get access to education. So now it's about numbers, and look how young in Europe, you have the other problem, you are all kind of retired or old, which is also, but that doesn't take away the burden of, indeed, because a population that is growing fast, they have to take care not only of the housing, but the education, the economy, everything. So I think once we are on the same page on this, question is now, how do you talk to leaders? How do you convince? You can convince with data, and of course now I focused on maternal mortality, but there are many more data also to show that for the youth, it's not always ideal if there are too many and they don't have access to education. So once you have your evidence, and that's our responsibility, but then we have to reach out to the politicians, to the leaders. And I refer to my period in Parliament. At that time, in the 90s, one of the big problems, HIV/AIDS. Now, what a parliamentarian wants to be re-elected. I don't think that in many African countries you can be re-elected if your number one is talking about sex, MSM, condom use, and HIV/AIDS. So people try to avoid. It's sensitive. It's better to talk about the mother and the child than about all these other things about sex. So it was indeed difficult, even for those politicians, and it is, who want to make a difference. So we worked together, and maybe something that AES could do, we formed a partnership with the IPU, the Interparliamentarian Union. And within IPU, you have, of course, all the parliaments from all countries are there. So we managed, with the leadership of IPU, to set up a kind of standing committee on HIV/AIDS with some parliamentarians, North, South, who are really kind of passionate about this topic. We developed, together with the UN, with UNAIDS, WHO, and others, a handbook for parliamentarians on HIV/AIDS, a handbook for parliamentarians on how do you talk to your communities. And the strength we have is that we can bring it from a health perspective, right? Because if you go to some of our countries here and you start with the flag of the rights of the gay people, of course, they have the rights, but you don't get far. I mean, so if you bring in not only rights, but mainly the health, everyone is sensitive to that. So we worked with IPU to bring that, and it has really made a difference, because it were the parliamentarians in their own countries who were talking. Now they knew what tools to have, and it facilitated their work. And I think we can learn from that, and maybe also with AES, reach out to leaders, parliaments or others in those countries that are open to that. I think that's something, the lesson we can learn. How do you bring that? Your second point, it's also very important. It's about what is happening in the US, and that's one of the pushbacks. You know, abortion is such a sensitive political, with all elections, it's about abortion somehow. And what happened in the US is really a drama for women's rights. We see already now that the maternal mortality in the US, I'm not talking about Africa, the US, is going up since Roe versus Wade. And that's, we know that it will happen. If women don't have access, they will go and try to find a solution, safe or unsafe. And in my long career as a gynecologist, my experience is that in whatever culture, the strongest Catholic culture, wherever you are or whatever religion, the higher class of women who are well connected, they will get their abortion, even when it's illegal, because it will be done under like a miscarriage. They will get it. But it's the vulnerable women, wherever they are, who are dying, who are suffering. And we should stop that. So we should also do something there.
Thank you very much, Professor.
Yeah, I would like to thank you for your talk, because it resonates very much, what all you have said. I'm going to make more a comment than I'm Tunisian, and Tunisia, after independence, one of the 5 pillars that President Bourguiba brought, to develop the country, it was education, women's rights, health, water, and electricity, to try to bring all these different things in the different parts of the country. And this is what made a difference. And education for all, and it made it compulsory for boys and girls. So it was really one of the first things that made a difference in the country. And then, pushing contraception and family planning. Contraception was abortion, and abortion. We had the right for abortion before, even in Europe and France and so on. Women used to come to Tunisia for that. So it was very important. No, but you see, this is when you have a visionary leader. And I want to say that it is a more political issue. Whatever you do with parliamentarians will not make a very big difference. Because what we have seen after 2011, and it is also related very much with religion, that they stopped family planning. And they wanted also to stop, not abortion, but family planning. And also we saw the population growth grow again. So you see this is why I said it's a very much a political issue, what's happening in the US and so on. And women are targeted every time. So it's very important. So it is women's right all over the world. That is one of the most important things, and women will make a difference. I said The 21st century is the century of women, and it will make a difference. We see it happening already, but it's a long fight, because unless you have women at top leader position, in leading position, that will make this kind of thing change. So it is, and I like the way you put all and these different leaders that are coming from different, places talking about, because it's all about development and about getting out of poverty, and education is one of the major things. But politics is also something we have to work on, and to have more women in politics.
Thanks, Professor. You want to comment, or gotta go with the next one? Okay, all right, okay. So, please, Professor.
Thank you so much, Professor Marlene. My name is Stephen Agong from Kenya, and also a governing council member of AS. My concern is the disconnect between science and the traditional knowledge or the indigenous knowledge system. In the past, even as a young boy, I could see my mom giving birth, and she would easily utilize what I would call traditional medicine. She would just pick some herbs and she would just give birth easily. This is no more because of the disconnect. And the traditional midwives were knowledgeable. And of course, we may not have data to defend ourselves now that there were less deaths. But I think even what you have recorded, probably from Pumwani Hospital, is what you see and what you can record. But there could be much more deaths which we are not even recording. I think as we do science, it would be good also to find a way of communicating this science to the how we can bring up and involve the traditional midwives who may not be well educated, but would help save a life like what we are seeing here. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Asante Sana. Let me quickly respond to that. A lot of work has been done with the TBAs, the traditional birth attendants, and WHO and in many countries we have tried, because there are a lot of accidents with them as well. And a lot of women died, but are not recorded. So the recording is better now. That's one thing. That's why it's difficult to compare historical data. But what has been tried is then maybe to give them a role. And if there is the slightest complication, because in most of the pregnancies, even if you don't have a doctor, a midwife, or a traditional birth attendant, you just deliver, most of them are okay, right? It's only when you have a bit of a complication that you need specialized care. So to address your question, you are right. What the TBAs now are kind of doing is bringing the women early in pregnancy to the health sector, and they have a very important role in education, and we educate them, I mean the nurses and the midwives, to know that they have the right message, because
if you allow me to do so. The first one, Prof, is yes, you have, yourself and Prof. Dakora have pointed to the religious aspect. I think in addition to the top policy makers, to the top decision makers, it is necessary to involve the religion component, because it's in the church, it's in the mosque in particular in Africa, where how can I say, the community is reached most. The second point, which is related to also what you highlighted and what Prof. Akisa has mentioned, is that there is really something that we are really ashamed. I am ashamed about it, is that the lack of addition of man to the cause of women. We hear a lot of women speaking about their rights and so on, but extremely less man to come in. And I wish just to, how can I say, to try to convince my fellow man here present by just highlighting a proverb. It said, and allow me please to finish my proverb. It said, a man is a baobab, is tall, big, and the woman is a small, a nano droplet of water. But without that droplet of water, there is no life to that baobab.
Thank you.
Absolutely, that is very well said. And I couldn't agree more with your first point, because I went maybe a bit too fast. I was saying the good thing about the SDGs, and also what Secretary General Ban Ki-moon started already before the SDGs, was that in the every woman, every child, now every adolescent, everywhere, that religious leaders, community leaders are very faith-based leaders are very much involved. In Kenya, for example, we have different religions, but we work with the religious groups in the society, also with the women groups, with education, because you cannot do it alone. There is even from the Egypt University Al-Ahram, there are the leaders, the Muslim leaders who are coming, and they have a kind of caravan. And they go to the different countries to speak to their own religious groups about family planning, about women's rights, about women's health. And so that is so crucial. I couldn't agree more. And I'm very happy for your call to the men here and everywhere, because it's correct. If you go in like you go to the UNGA, the UN General Assembly, and or any meeting, and there are meetings on reproductive health or women's rights, 90% are women. So where are the men, right? So let's call upon the men, and I'm very happy that the men who are here, maybe even the majority, that they are taking that point. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Temmerman. Please join me in thanking Professor Temmerman again. Thank you so much. So now we have the very well anticipated session from our brilliant laureates of ARISE fellows. And so may I call to the podium here, Dr. Benjamin Kumwenda from University of Malawi. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. I would like to thank the organizers for the opportunity to present my talk on
sorry for the interruption. Good morning. I just wanted to mention that there are various groups today. It's not just ARISE. So we have ARISE, we have APTI, we have ARISE. But so that we know which group you belong, please start with an introduction so that we know, are you part of ARISE, ARISE, APTI, and so on and so forth. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That has given me time to reorganize myself. And so Benjamin Kumwenda, as already introduced, and I belong to the ARISE. This fellowship was granted to us in 2018, and it's coming to end. It actually is coming to end. Our closing meeting is going to be on Thursday. My talk is on investigating emerging Salmonella typhimurium sequence type 313 lineages among patients in Blantyre. I'll give a brief background. I only have 5 minutes, so I'll be very quick. The general overview of the project and the key findings. So Salmonella typhimurium is a bacteria that causes diarrhea. But in Africa, due to these risk factors, HIV, malaria, and malnutrition, it ends up going into the blood to cause infections. So that's the challenge that we have in Africa. And as you can see, about 380,000 deaths are recorded annually in Africa alone. In developed countries, usually this just causes diarrhea, and then it's self-limiting. You take water, and after some time you're well. But in Africa, this creates complications due to the infections as well as the complexity, because of drug resistance that is occurring among the pathogens. So in Blantyre, we noted at this hospital, this is the referral hospital in Blantyre, we noted an emergence of a group of Salmonella that was branching from the original pathogens, and this was drug resistant, but it was more among patients. And so we're wondering why that was the case. And this was mainly the purpose of this study, to investigate the genetic differences between the representative strains from the two groups. And to do that, we had to also look at the gene expression to look at whether the differences are in the way genes are expressed during the infection process, and then try to relate the genetic features and the gene expression to whether that can explain why we are having an emergence of this new group of organisms. So basically, this was the methodology where we got representative sequences from the two groups and then did the comparative genomics, looking at different genetic features, including transcriptomics. So our results revealed different differences in the genetic makeup. As you can see here, we have this representative strain from one group and this from the other, and we have kind of deletions which accounted to the differences that we're seeing. These differences were tested in the lab to check if indeed they are real, and we could see some differences in amplification. As you can see on these two bands here, we have amplification of this place, and yet in the other group there was no such amplification, confirming the deletions that we saw. We also saw differences. As you can see, this is a new group that emerged, the representative sequences. These are the previous sequences. There's quite changes in that, where we saw that there were less phages in here, but also we had some SNPs that occur here. I'm only showing one, which shows that indeed there were these genetic differences. In gene expression, we tried to group the two types of bacteria in the infection path from the mouth all the way to the gut. These are different conditions that are mimicked, and then you look at how many genes are being expressed and then see the differences. This is the path where we are trying to compare using RNA-seq and DNA-seq to try to compare the expression levels. And what was very interesting is that in a condition that is supposed to suppress genes that are used to invade the host, there was high overexpression of genes in the new strain that we had, as is also shown in these graphs. The red here means that there's high expression, while the blue means that there's less expression. So this was very surprising, because this is a condition where the genes were supposed to be switched off, but they were highly expressed. Also, we saw downregulation of some flagella genes which are used for mortality, and we did lab experiments which showed that indeed the new group of Salmonella pathogens had less mobility, whilst the old ones were moving fast. And this was also confirming the RNA-seq gene expression, where we tagged the gene that is expressed when the bacteria is invading the host, and indeed we saw a quite big difference in that expression levels. This made us to do a much bigger project where we did sequencing, so that we can look at a broader number of strains, and then from there we pick up signatures that we can use to develop the multiplex PCR that then can be used for informing clinical practice, and as well as for public health use. This is the Matprex PCR. So the end result was for us to develop an assay that can be used to pick up these different pathogens, and then the clinical settings can be informed, but we can also use them for surveillance. Unfortunately, at the same point that we were processing this, there was another bigger project, the Salmonella Genomes Project, which was sequencing genomes across the globe. And so this allowed this study to put our work into context. These are the genomes that we managed to sequence, and here, as you can see, they are classified on this phylogenetic tree. The ones that are in blue, these are the new ones that emerged in Blantyre. The ones in the light blue are the ones where the older ones. So we're trying to see if we can find a marker that can pick up these genomes, and then we are able to quickly effect. This is a methodology that we use to do that work. And yes, indeed, we managed to develop some assays, and they are being tested here to see if they're able to pick up. And these gels are showing the experimental results. And we have picked some markers, which are showing here. The lineage 2 is the new group of strains, which are drug resistant, and lineage 1, this is the new, the odd group that was less effective in Blantyre. And we use the sensitivity and specificity to see whether indeed these markers can be used to pick up. And these were the best markers that we saw so far. And having seen these markers, we would think about what can we do with these. So we use these markers to automatically detect these pathogens using online techniques. So they will be plugged into a Salmonella Genomes database, where you can just put your sequence and know whether your strain is drug resistant, belonging to lineage 2 or not. It will also be used for clinical applications to detect Salmonella lineages in patients in hospitals, as well as to be used for surveillance in communities. So in conclusion, we have developed these primers as a marker for identifying these pathogens. And we started our ARISE fellowship as young eaglets there, but AS picked us on the wings, and now we are ready to fly. I would like to thank these people, and also like to thank the ARISE, AS ARISE fellows, and particularly also to thank Mr. Obed for taking us through the fellowship. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Dr. Kuenda. We will defer the questions after the 12 presentations are done, because these are very short presentations. And I would ask the speakers to please try to stick to the 5 minutes, because we have a long list of presentations. So now I call on Dr. Euclides Sakomboyo, an ARISE fellow from Universidade Agostinho Neto from Angola. Is Dr. Euclides here? Oh, yeah. He's not here? Yeah. Oh, okay. So the third is not here as well, Dr. Obey. Okay, so Dr. George Shimoa, ARISE fellow from Botswana International University of Science and Technology in Botswana. Thank you.
Thank you and good morning. Right, so my name is George Shimoa from the Botswana International University of Science and Technology. And I'm going to take you through my project, which is called Advanced Nanomaterials for Disease Diagnosis Using Human Breath. And I must confess, I'm a bit nervous to be talking about public health issues. Yet I'm a physicist, and I'm speaking to some of the experts in public health in this auditorium. So however, with my little things that I've gathered over the years, I believe I have some ideas that can help to solve some of the public health that we have. So TB is one of the leading causes of death in low-income countries. And from the statistics by the World Health Organization in 2020, it shows that Southern Africa is the worst affected region, shown by those dark blue region dark blue regions on the map. And while there are many techniques that can be used to diagnose TB, breath analysis has emerged as one of the promising techniques that can be used, because taking from the science that we already know that human breath contains a lot of volatile organic compounds, some of which are biomarkers of specific diseases. For example, 1,3-dimethylcyclohexane is a biomarker of tuberculosis, and nitric oxide vapor is a biomarker of asthma, and some polypropylene vapors are known as the biomarkers of lung cancer. So if we can develop a device that can mimic the sensitivity of the nose of a dog, we should be able to diagnose some of these diseases just by using human breath. So what we intend to do is to make a resistive type gas sensing electronic nose. And we make this by first synthesizing what we call advanced nanomaterials using our CVD technique. And we then go on to do gas sensing and optimization. And we have actually developed our own gas sensing station at 20% less the cost of the commercial available gas sensing machines. And then the PhD students will also then do some tests on human breath. And then this should lead to the development of a breathalyzer machine that we can then use to diagnose those diseases that I've talked about. And we should be able to take those for clinical trials at a later stage. Now, so what is the probability of technical success in this endeavor? From the previous work that I've done so far, using double-walled carbon nanotubes filled with zinc iodide, we're able to distinguish between formaldehyde from acetone and ethanol. And by the way, acetone is another biomarker of diabetes. So because we are in a position to develop a material to identify a particular volatile organic compounds, we believe we can borrow from that technique that we have done so far to apply to these other biomarkers that I've talked about earlier on. So the probability is quite high. Okay, sorry. So currently we just started. We have got just 2 students, 1 master's, 1 PhD. And just last week they finished the software for the gas sensing station. So the top graph there is the front panel of that software, and the bottom graph is the block diagram of that software. And with this skill, they are in a position to automate any instrument. Well, the idea is we don't want them to spend too much time on the instrument. They must just start the sequence, let the instrument run, it saves the data, and then they focus more on the science. That's the idea of automating the equipment. So I also want to thank the African Academy, the European Union, and the African Commission for the funding, because right now as we speak, that CVD technique machine is on its way to Botswana from China. And then the SMU measurements from Keithley, US will be arriving in January. And with that, I want to thank you all for listening.
Thank you very much, Dr. Swan. The next speaker is Dr. Nana Amisa. Oh, sorry. Oh, okay. Okay. So sorry, the list here is not updated, but anyway. So Dr. Etienne Bilgo, from ARISE Fellow, Institut de Recherche en Sciences Santé, Burkina Faso.
Thank you. So thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, everyone. So I'm an ARISE Fellow from Burkina Faso, and we are based at Institut de Recherche en Sciences de la Santé and Sainte-Muraz in Burkina Faso. So my ARISE project is on innovative vector control tools based on entomopathogenic fungi. Entomopathogenic fungi are fungus that can kill mosquitoes, and we want to use them for safe and long-term control of malaria and dengue mosquitoes. So in terms of problematic of my work, you can see in these figures that the cases of malaria are really increasing these last years, and here, and since 2017 to now. This is due mainly to the failure. There are a lot of explanations, but mainly we have the failure of common vector control tools that we have in our hand. So the WHO and the scientific community are really need of new control tools that can work in complementary with common tools, which are insecticide-based control tools that we have in our hands. So let's give a little background when we are talking about vector control and vector biology. And for example, if we take the example of malaria, we have 4 systemic components, which are the parasite, we have the vectors, we have human, which is generally in our case now, pregnant women and child that's really suffering from this disease. But there is another 4th component, which are really important that we need to take into account, which is the environment. So when it came to develop new tools, we need to come with strategies that can block the links between these different components. As much as possible, we are putting together strategies, our approach become really stronger. So in our case, we want to work with entomopathogenic fungus. We can see here in this screen different insects dead from the infection from the fungus. And unlike bacteria and viruses, which need to be ingested by the mosquitoes or other insects to be active, fungus are really working easily. They're killing insects through direct contact on their cuticle, so they can work like chemical insecticide. So all of the methods that we are using with chemical insecticide, we can apply them for the fungus. So in our lab, my ERASE project came directly from the work that I've been doing these recent years. We have isolated different strains of fungus which are really virulent locally in Burkina Faso, which are really virulent. That means they are killing very well mosquitoes. And we have also shown that in the lab, they are working in synergy with chemical insecticide. And also we have shown that with collaborators from US that they can be genetically modified in order to increase their virulence also. So, but there are several questions that I need to respond and during my ERASE project. And that's mainly how the fungus is really infecting mosquitoes before killing them. What is the molecular basis, the biochemical basis of these infections? And also how we can combine or engineer this fungus in order to combine them with chemical insecticide that we have in our hands now. And thirdly, we want to integrate the use of this fungus with another promising strategy, which is the use of Wolbachia for dengue control. This is another promising technology when we are talking about dengue control. So fourthly, we want also to see how we can, at this stage, at our research stage, we want to understand the acceptance of this tool in the future by local communities, because we can work on something which is really good in the lab, but at the end of the day, if people don't accept this product, that means that our efforts are not really important. So we started the project just last month in November, and we already hired 3 PhD students. You can see here that it looks like in my lab, women are doing well than men. We have two women, and they are working on the protocol, the stepwise protocol, and also they're starting the literature review that we're gonna publish in coming month. And also, as I started to talk with some partners of the project, like WANIDA and the French Research Institute called IRD, in order to see how they can really support the project and the training of students. And also, just when I will return in my lab next week, we're gonna continue the process of hiring masters and other PhD students. So in terms of impact of this project, I can say that this project gonna bring us like help to connect us with other researchers, top researcher in my research area, but also there is another component which is the translation. What we are doing in the lab, how we can formulate it in a product that can come in the vector toolbox in the coming years. And thirdly, we have another big component, which is the training of PhD student and master student on the microbial biotechnologies. And also we want to train malaria vector control professionals. Like we are planning to have like 45 professionals to be trained every year during the 5 years of this project. So I would like to end my presentation by putting faces on some names of key collaborators which really supported me during the writing, and they are really excited to implement this project with us. There are partners from the North, in the US, in the UK, but also we have partners from Africa, like Professor Gordon Awandari from University of Ghana. And we have also Fred Ross from Tanzania. And in my lab, we have Dr. Leah Pari, which is our lead on social science. She's gonna really take care of all of this aspect regarding the acceptance of population of our tool. And also we have some network like PAMCA, Pan-African Mosquito Control Association, which they are really supporting us during this project. And I would really like to end my presentation saying thank you so much to ARISE, to the African Academy of Sciences, to the European Union, through the both committees, the Committee of African Union and the Committee of European Union. Why? Because this project is a really great opportunity that helped me to really follow the full step of one of my heroes in science, who is in this room. This is Professor Abdoulaye Diabaté. And I remember I joined his team when he was pretty much at the same level like me 10 years ago, with a sort of same kind ground like me. And I'm really excited to run this project with him. And I'm confident and 100% confident that I'm gonna reach all of the goals that we are really looking for this project. Thank you so much.
Merci beaucoup, Dr. Bilgo. Merci. Thank you very much, Dr. Bilgo. So the next speaker is Dr. Bartolomeo Ondigo, APTI fellow from Egerton University in Kenya.
Thank you. Thank you, organizers, for this opportunity. My name is Bartolomeo Ondigo. I'm an APTI fellow and a lecturer, research fellow at Egerton University in Kenya. Happy to share with you part of my work entitled Fetal Macrophages in Malaria-Infected and Uninfected Women. I'm happy that the keynote speaker, Professor Marlin, went ahead and really introduced us to this topic. So to start with, malaria is a public health problem, and most affected is Africa, sub-Saharan Africa, 90% deaths in Africa. And you see that pregnant women and children are worst affected, the hardest hit. And the figure on the right is placental malaria, which is more or less understudied. But we've seen that previous studies have shown that infected red cells sequester in the placenta, and the biology of the placenta is like least understood, least understudied. So we're trying to develop capacity of the placental biology, asking questions on innate immunity, what's going on at the placental level. And placental malaria characterized by maternal anemia, spontaneous abortion, preterm delivery, low birth weight, stillbirth, neonatal deaths, all those outcomes associated with the placental malaria. So my interest is on innate immune responses, and in this case, study macrophages in the placenta. And in circulation, they are monocytes. When they move to in the tissue, they become macrophages, and they exhibit what we call plasticity, that they change from M1 to M2. So we see like M1 is more pro-inflammatory. It's like a sword destroying tissues, cells, the matrix in the placenta, and M2 is more of like the protective type. So trying to understand how the malaria in the placenta is affecting this balance of M1, M2 macrophages. So two major aims. One was to profile these fetal macrophages in the intervillar space in the placenta. And the second aim was to look at these biomarkers in the placenta. And these biomarkers were soluble CD14, soluble CD163, that are markers that are produced in the placenta, and relate them with infection and infection status. And we had an hypothesis there that placenta malaria is associated with changes in profiles of these fetal macrophages in the intervillar space and intravillous spaces. So what we show there is like two women as a representative of what we are trying to show. One on top is an infected woman, that's the placenta from an infected woman, gave birth at gestation weeks 40, almost 41, gave birth to a female baby, and the weight of the baby was 3.4 kg. And the lower side is a woman who was infected when we enrolled her, infected at delivery, and the baby, with gestation weeks 40, the baby was a female and 3.2 kg. And to look at how the two phenotypes in terms of the cells in the placenta compare, you would see that we have three markers. IBA1 is a pan marker for macrophages. CD68 is a marker for M1 macrophages. CD163 is a marker for M2. So we look at how those phenotypic changes occur, the changes between the two groups of women, and you would see from the upper panel that a woman who is uninfected at delivery, CD163, a marker for M2 cells, are highly expressed, and it's been known that M2 provide roles in terms of placental development, placental growth, and when you have a placenta that is fully developed, chances are high that the baby would be also developed in terms of vasculature angiogenesis. While in the lower panel, CD163 is depressed, though the baby was born 3.2 kgs, but the placenta is like somehow depressed. We also look at markers. So in this case, we look at soluble CD14, soluble CD163, and we show clearly that in women who are infected with placenta malaria, they tend to have higher levels of markers of macrophages, in this case, soluble, those two markers. In short, our studies have shown that the two that are soluble markers are upregulated. There are changes in phenotypes of macrophages. And lastly, that I'm trying to do, we're developing capacity in immunology, molecular biology by having 3 graduate students. Happy to note from Prof that these students are spread from different universities in Kenya. We have a student from Jaramogi Oginga Odinga University and a student from JKUAT and a student from Egerton. And thanks to the Belinda Gates Foundation, setting up a lab, infectious disease lab at Egerton University, lots of procuring going on courtesy of the academy. Thanks Obed, thanks Sheila and Alex, that been ordering equipment from Europe, and they are en route to Kenya, while others I'm sourcing them from Kenya. Lastly, I want to thank NIH that have been supportive of the training at the NIH Melinda Gates Foundation, NIAID, my home university, Egerton, African Academy of Sciences for the logistical support, OITE for the intense training, and most importantly, Fogarty that houses us as fellows. And lastly, I believe in this saying that if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. Thank you.
So the next speaker is Dr. Proteus Tarkang, a Rice Fellow from the Institute of Medical Research and Medicinal Plant Studies from Cameroon. Oh, how are you?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, good morning. I will continue in the light of malaria, but we'll be looking at malaria therapy. I'm a Professor Takang from the Institute of Medical Research and Medicinal Plant Studies in Cameroon, and I'm an ARISE fellow. So my project will be a malaria therapeutic lead discovery project. We'll be combining metabolomics of polyherbals and the Plasmodium falciparum asexual blood stage specificity. Just to enlighten you on metabolomics, it is the systematic measurement and biological interpretation of all metabolites in the matrix of a biological system, in this case, the plants. Yeah, so emerging resistance in Plasmodium remains a major public health problem, and we understand the consequences. And of course, there's a need for new drugs, which will have multi-target effect. And especially if they have the action on multiple stages of the sexual blood stages of Plasmodium cycle, because this is the evidence of the manifestation of the disease. And we understand that over the years, plants have had their remarkable remarkable role in the development of anti-malaria drugs. And we have cases of quinine and the others. But of course, this was an approach that was based on a single reductionist, single compound, single target approach, which does not give the whole activity. So polyherbals in this case, and in the context of a combination therapy, give us another opportunity. But of course, they come with challenges because of the elucidation of the metabolites in their matrix, and that is why we are applying technologies, new technologies like high resolution mass spectrometry for the complete elucidation, and that is the case of the metabolomics. And so the objective of this project will be to identify anti-Plasmodium metabolites from the selected polyherbals which we'll be studying, and we'll be looking at the mass spectrometric based metabolomics of these plants, pinpoint synergistic pairs, and of course, we will try to see the susceptibility of the various specific stages of the sexual blood stage of the Plasmodium, which involves the ring stages, the trophozoites, and the schizoids, to these synergistic pairs. So by so doing, it will enable us to correlate these pharmacological signatures to systems biology measurements. So the motivation was from previous projects and the data that we had gotten from that. The first was the interaction studies of about 6 plants constituting about 6 polyherbals constituting 15 plants. And when we did the interaction studies, we could see the full increase in the first, to see the full increase in activity. And from the data we got, we showed that this synergistic activity between the constituted plants of each polyherbal increased the therapeutic selectivity. We're more motivated to know what the contents were. So we did a preliminary GCMS, and that's gas chromatography coupled to mass spec, liquid chromatography coupled to mass spectrometry of the pulverized plants. And of course, at this stage, because we're using whole pulverized plants, we identified some anti-plasmodial metabolites, non-anti-plasmodial metabolites, and some unidentified small molecules. And this gave us the idea to go forward to get this fractionation. And those were the recommendations, to do the fractionation and then try to couple high throughput screening, various levels of biological evaluation, and of course, get the metabolomics profiling. So I'm just giving here a resume of the methodologies which we will try to follow. At this stage, from 2 months, we are at the first stage here. We've identified the plants, so we will need a little of equipment, and that will go in line with the specific objectives, which will be to identify the metabolomic biomarkers of the selected plants, because it will be the same plants that we'll be doing. And the second will be to identify active synergistic metabolites by in vitro means. This will be high throughput screening and medium throughput screening. And specifically, the third will be to profile the stage specificity of the various stages of the Plasmodium asexual blood stages to these compounds. And coming down here, this is an iterative. They are not straight-jacketed as they look. They are iterative interactive steps. So when we are going down, you have various levels of biological evaluation, After microfractionations, we'll have that. After the mass spec, metabolomics will have identification of the metabolites and another level of biological evaluation. And of course, when we identify the synergistic metabolites, which will be very complicated because we'll be generating very huge database. And based on these polyhebas, it will give you an idea of the metabolites that can be synergistic. We already have a lot of unpublished data on that. We can't go deep into that. And coming back to this, to the last evaluation stage, which will be the state-specific studies, it will be 40 cycle exposure, sorbitol synchronized exposure of the various stages, early rings, early trough, late troughs, and the shy zones to the test compounds. And we expect that that should give us an idea of where the various active compounds will be active. And of course, we expect some outcomes implementing a high throughput and medium throughput drug discovery platform, capacity building, a mass spec, which we'll be doing in collaboration with for now, we have a North partner in Oxford where we have started the work. We'll also, of course, have some leads which will be available for downstream analysis in the drug development pipeline. Of course, there will be leadership development, and wish to appreciate AS. We already started some leadership training a few days ago. And of course, we expect to start with the training of 2 PhDs and 4 masters. But of course, with the hope that once this platform, the drug discovery platform, is set up, we'll be able to take up some postdocs as well. And we're looking forward to other collaborations with other African countries. Some is ongoing, but I can't declare that for now. Sincere appreciation to AAS, African Union, and the European Union, my host institute, and the previous funders of the projects that we've been able to carry out. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Kang. So the next speaker is Dr. Hama Maïdja, APTI Fellow, Institut National de Recherche de Santé Publique, Mali. S'il vous plaît. Bonjour.
Thank you very much. So my name is Hama Maïdja. I am from Mali. I am a APTI Fellow. So I am assistant professor at National Institute of Public Health. So I did my postdoc at NIH 3 years ago. So my title is based on Sanger sequencing and the convolution of polyclonal infection. You have used a quantitative approach to monitoring drug resistance, Plasmodium. So at background, mixed infection of different genotypes are highly prevalent malaria endemic in Africa. In general, mixed genotype have often been classified with median as presence of mutation that mediate treatment failure will be expected to impact treatment response. Currently, tools commonly used and based on binary code, so conventional code, to define to moderate the marker of antimalarial resistance do not allow discrimination of mixed infection. You investigate a new tools that quantifies marker of resistance in mixed infection samples and allows the proportion of different genotype to be estimated. Our method is based on lab samples. You have VOS1 resistance and FCR3 susceptible, where mixed at different ratio to obtain sample from 100% to 0%, to 0% to 100 respectively in 11 mixture with 10% successive increase or decrease in the proportion. So to calculate the mean fraction of resistance marker, it is a long story, but it is based on PCR first and then Sanger sequencing of resistance fragment. So this model is developed by mathematician. It is 12 pages, I think so. The convolution is used on R of chromatogram to quantify variant is used a multiplex algorithm approach. So our first result as show, if you take one sample, you have at 4 here, at 4 point, you have 62% of resistance and 38% of resistance. This is approximating things because it is not mathematical. 1 + 1 = 2. This is the quantitative method. So this is reality. And you have again a significant correlation based on the percent compared to the volume. When you compare the conventional method, you have 90% in general. If you look this 3-point mutation, and when you take our mean fraction method, this is the new, you have around 50% of methane and 50% of susceptible. So you have just take the sample from field. And when you look this 3-point mutation, you have, it is saturated at 100%. When you use our new tool, look, it is minus at 100%. And when you use again the Vylon plot, you have the distribution and mean mutation is here. So the conclusion, our result demonstrate quantitative discrimination of variant proportion of sensitive versus resistance allele. This method is an effective sequencing approach for population-based surveys that characterize misinfection at the individual level, and the end to compare to the conventional approach, the mean fraction determined by the deconvolution method might well a more accurate estimate of drug-resistant malaria parasite as a proportion with individual sample as well as for the total parasite reservoir in the community. So I would like to say this program is exciting program, and this program allow me the foundation of my career development. And I would to say huge thanks for Obed, Alex, Sheila, and Kantel who follow us. Thanks for funder, thanks for my host institution, points, and thanks for my home institution. Thank you very much. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you. So the next speaker is Dr. Dakin Kasumba, a Rice Fellow from Institut National de Recherche Biomédicale, Democratic Republic of Congo. Do we have Professor Dr. Kasumba with us? Online? No? Okay, well, we move to Dr. Judy Kael Omabe Nkoge, a Rice Fellow, University of Science and Technology of Masuka, Gabon. Dr. Judy Kael? Yeah. Are you going to use your own computer? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you. It's my pleasure to talk about one part of my project, my ARISE project, the Albo Drive project. And my talk today will be about understanding the invasive success of Aedes albopictus, also called the tiger mosquito, to mitigate its potential to spread vector-borne and zoonotic viruses in forested areas of Gabon. My name is Judy Kael. I'm an assistant professor at the Université des Sciences et Techniques de Masuku in Gabon, Central Africa. And I'm also an associate research fellow at the Centre Interdisciplinaire de Recherche Médicale de Franceville, also in Gabon. Well, Aedes albopictus is actually one of the most dangerous vectors in the world, and originating from Southeast Asia, it has invaded all the continents and causing several outbreaks. The problem is not relevantly understanding the vector systems related to these viruses is a major cause of non-efficiently mitigating their spread in the world. So in Gabon, this highly anthropophilic mosquito has caused, for example, dengue outbreaks, chikungunya outbreaks, and with prevalences reaching up to 35% in the infected populations. So in order for government to better be prepared against the sanitary danger due to this tiger mosquito, it is highly crucial to implement targeted preventive vector control strategy based on relevant understanding of how the species introduced, adapt. Yes, I understand, but I'm coming. Yes, and spreads in new environments. Yeah, so it has taken in Africa less than 30 years for this species to introduce in urban cities, and now it is found in wild environment where the human presence is low or zero. So regarding its potential for doing all that things, so we were interested to understand, is Aedes albopictus able to lastingly establish in a wild environment, and is it able to interfere in sylvatic virus cycles, and what is its potential to bridge zoonotic viruses from the wild towards the human compartment? And so we have chosen this place in Gabon. It is the Lope National Parks, where we found a lot of wild animals like gorillas, mandrills, elephants, buffaloes, cats, and birds who can act as reservoirs of those pathogens. And I will present you some preliminary data, and we have used for our strategy of sampling BG traps to collect adults, larval samplings, and also the human landing catchers, my preferred one. And these are preliminary data. So you can see here in the anthropogenic area and in the sylvatic compartment, we have found that the tiger mosquito, Aedes albopictus in red, is over dominating other species, the native ones. And you can see also here the Lope site. Here you have the village and the deep forest, and between you have the savanna, and the distance between the Lope village and the forest is 10 kilometers. So we have detected this species far away from the village where there are people living. So those results suggest that the tiger mosquito can possibly lastingly persist in forests, because we have made observation from 2014 until 2018. And these results also suggest that the establishment of Aedes albopictus in forest environments does not alter its propensity to bite humans, because we have also detected albopictus beating humans in those parts of the site. For larval prospection, we have observed that In the Sylvatic area, the Aedes albopictus was most of the time found in galleries and in groves. And going into detail, we have seen that here in red, you have the data for Aedes albopictus, but in the deep forest, it is absent. And in the savanna, it is in lower proportion. So we can understand that albopictus may not be, maybe for the moment, a specialist of deep forest ecosystems in the context of the Lope National Park in Central Africa. And its progression towards the forest may be, because of that, regulated by a certain hardness of the natural microhabitat, often exploited by others, native species of mosquito, maybe it can interact with. So the perspective now is going deeper in the characterization of the niche and understanding the interaction with the environment, with the other species, and to explore the genetic structuration of these species in all the country, and to see if there is a link with the capacity of the species to transmit certain strains of viruses. So yeah, thank you very much for the European Union for funding this work. Thank you also to the African Academy of Science for implementing this ARISE project in partnership with African Union Commission and the European Union Commission. I'll also give a big thanks to all the collaborators working with me in my institution and the collaborative others institution. Thank you very much for your attention. Thank you.
So you ended up using the slides. That's
Yeah.
perfect.
Yeah.
So thank you very much. Yeah. So the last speaker, but certainly not the least, is Dr. Musa Kana, APTI fellow from Federal University of Lafia, Nigeria. Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Okay, I'm an APTI fellow and an associate professor at the Kaduna State University. When I started the APTI program, I was at Federal University Lafia, but now this is my institution, as well as I'm working with the Institute of Human Virology Nigeria because of certain aspect of my work that I need a very specialist laboratory. So the title of my project is investigating the role of environmental factors in the causation of stunting in northern Nigeria. Stunting refers to impaired growth and development in children who experience repeated infections, exposures to adverse environmental exposures, and inadequate psychosocial stimulation. Presently, and it has a life course consequences. It occurs mostly during the first 1,000 days of life, and it often begins in utero. Because of its association with impaired brain development, it leads to optimal cognitive and motor development, and it is also associated with weakened immune system, which leads to increased rates of childhood morbidity and mortality. And also later during adulthood, it has been established there is association with increased adverse health outcomes. Presently, in 5 of the United Nations zones, there is a stunting prevalence of over 30%. And globally, in fact, there are about 23% of children who are under 5 that are stunted, and 1/3 of that burden is in Africa. Nigeria being the most populous country in Africa, based on the last demographic and health survey, it has shown that 37% of Nigerian children are actually stunted. Despite the drop in global burden over the last 30 years, the prevalence in low-income countries, mostly in Africa, has shown that there has not been any significant reduction. And therefore, we need to have new studies that will investigate causal factors that will lead us to have more effective interventions. Because of the developmental origin of childhood stunting, we believe that using a longitudinal approach would provide us with insight on when actually these exposures occur during intrauterine life and early postnatal life, so that we could intervene at those particular period. And if we're using this approach, we could also find we can also test interventions that eventually can be used at population level. And it could lead to reduction in stunting and its sequelae. It has been observed that nutritional interventions which used a specific, which target specific micronutrient has not made any significant impact in terms of population level reduction in childhood stunting. Environmental exposures are thought to contribute to stunting, but evidence regarding the specific exposures remain inconclusive, and the biological mechanisms for observed associations are poorly understood. Therefore, we are implementing this new birth cohort study called the Kaduna Infant Development Birth Cohort Study, with the primary aim of investigating the role of environmental factors in the development of childhood stunting during the first 1,000 days of life. Additionally, we plan to collect questionnaire data, clinical data, and biological samples at baseline and during subsequent follow-up so that we can form the basis of future studies. We adopted a stepwise approach in the implementation of the birth cohort study. Over the last 5 years, we were able to do a feasibility study. During this time, we were able to establish the feasibility of recruiting and doing follow-up in a low resource setting like Nigeria. And we're also able to do some sub-studies, which I will briefly show some of the results. Upon my return from the first period of the APTI program, I was able to lead the formative research, which has the goal of establishing optimal location and logistic for doing the birth cohort study. And the next phase, which is piloting the Kaduna Infant Development Birth Cohort Study, will involve validating study tools and also all the workflow and SOPs that we will be using in the main study. So during the feasibility study, we're able to train 2 master students. And we published 3 articles which are displayed here. And we also have more articles that we are working towards their publication. So one of those articles in which we did a sub-study, we were able to show that there's an association between intimate partner violence during pregnancy and birth weight among term births. And in this study, we also showed a dose-response relationship for women who are exposed to less or greater exposure to intimate partner violence. We showed that there's a gradient in terms of the effect on birth weight. We also showed that there's an association between biomass fuel, which is very prevalent. The use of biomass fuel is very prevalent in my country, that is also impactful on birth weight. So we did that in the population that we are studying, and also we did a validation study using the national data from the Demographic and Health Survey of Nigeria. So next, this year we did the formative and scoping study, and the lessons that we have gotten from it is that about 99% of women, so we use a mixed method of data analysis, of data collection, qualitative as well as quantitative. So for the quantitative survey, we interviewed 1,802 women, and almost 99% of them are willing to participate in the prospective birth cohort study. And the women reported that they will require the permission of their spouses because this is a highly patriarchal society. If indeed we want to be successful, we have to involve their spouses. And we need to ensure proper channels of communication with the community, and all the processes of data collection has to be transparent. And the women were willing to give, about 57% of the women were willing to give the whole placenta, about 79% were willing to give part of the placenta. This is important because when we're doing the feasibility study, we recruited the women at the time of delivery and we followed up the children. That is not a very good way to recruit because we are asking questions after the event. And so there is a lot of criticism about recall bias and our inability to demonstrate biological plausibility because we didn't collect biological samples. So in the next phase of the birth cohort study, we plan to recruit women during pregnancy so that we can be able to collect biological samples and also do prospective measurement of exposures. And also, because of the lessons that we have learned, we plan to establish some interventions. So one of it is that we are going to have community and public engagement strategies so that we can carry the community along in all the phases of the study. We plan to also update the participant recruitment, participant information and consent forms so that we address issues around protecting cultural and religious beliefs. And finally, we are also going to institute incentives to enhance participant recruitment and follow-up, because in the past, we use the immunization visits that mothers do bring their children as a means for follow-up. So because we're using the goodwill of the mothers, there was poor follow-up. In fact, by the second follow-up during 6 weeks, we found out that only about 70% of the mothers were actually bringing their kids. So, but now in the next phase, we want to address that by putting incentives that will help mothers to come for follow-up. So in the next 1 year, we are going to be piloting the study. So we are using the funding that APTI has provided for me. I have gotten equipment that will enable us to be able to preserve biological samples that we are going to collect so that we can analyze them in the future. And also we will analyze and report the findings. So in this pilot, we are going to recruit mothers during the 3rd trimester. And we will follow up to the time of delivery, where we'll collect the placenta, cord blood, as well as maternal blood. Then subsequently, during that visit, we'll also collect stool, the first stool sample, and also collect stool samples of the child in subsequent visit, and also collect breast milk sample from the mother as the follow-up progresses. So presently, I'm happy to say that with APTI funding, we were able to get 6 purple air quality monitors, which we plan to install across the city of Kaduna in northern Nigeria. So this is the first one. I have 2 weeks data. So it is showing that the air quality, because this is enabling us to measure PM1, PM2.5, and PM10, as well as the temperature changes in the city. We also have 10 indoor air quality monitors that will enable us to monitor the indoor air quality in the homes of the participants that we are going to recruit. I want to end by saying that the future of my work is that with the pilot data, it will put me in a very strong position to be able to apply for a competitive funding that will enable me to carry out the bigger study. And with the infrastructure and resource that we're establishing, it will put me in a very good state to train my future trainees in molecular epidemiology, as well as other aspects of the work that I will be doing. And also because of the longitudinal nature of what I will be doing, it will put me in a very good position to collaborate with many scientists who will want to do very important hypothesis-driven research in the context of developmental origin of health and disease. Finally, I want to thank the APTI partners for starting this program, which enabled me to spend 3 years at the NIH, and I got world-class training that is enabling me to do what I am doing. Thank you, the APTI Secretariat, Dr. Obet, and all the other very important people who have been supporting us, and my colleagues who have become family to me. Thank you.
Well, now I guess, Obed, we have like 10 minutes of 15 minutes questions. 5, 10. Okay, so we have like 5 minutes for questions. The floor is open now for any of the speakers. Yes, Doctor.
Thank you very much. I'm sorry that I didn't catch up the name, but a presenter from Cameroon, and he was presenting on the polyhebals. I didn't catch up with you. What is the polyhebals? You defined about the metabolic. Now the polyhebals, yes.
Yeah, polyhebal formulations are formulations made by more than one plant. They constitute more than one plant, which are used for therapy. So we are trying to validate their therapeutic value.
Thanks. I don't have a specific question. I think all the presentations were good. I was just wondering the gender balance. I was wondering, are the ladies not here? Or have they not? Because usually like in a RISE, I think we looked at that. But this morning we had men only. So maybe the ladies couldn't travel. Anyone who knows?
Well, there are several people that didn't come up. I don't know if I didn't look up their gender, but yeah, could be a gender. Yeah, we should find out why exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks. I have a question first for George. George Shimua. Yeah, you mentioned that dimethyl cyclohexane is a biomarker for tuberculosis. So I want to know Is it for active tuberculosis only or latent tuberculosis as well? Okay.
Sorry, I apologize. Sorry. Yes. Who was first? I don't know. So, okay.
Yeah, thank you. My question is to Dr. Musa Kana. Yes, he talked about these factors that affect stunting. Very interesting. Could genetics not play a role there? I don't know.
Leading the consortium called the PEACE Consortium, which is the Pregnancy and Childhood Epigenetic Consortium. So indeed, I'm looking forward to examining biomarkers of epigenetic markers of some very important exposures, because it's not just genetics, but how does the environment influence genetics, which is like the current thinking about how the two gene environment interaction could be studied. So we are going to study that. Thank you.
Thank you. Any more questions? Yeah, here.
Thank you very much. My question also goes to Musa Kana. Thank you very much for your work. I was just wondering, the air quality meters that you said you deployed, did you also deploy them in indoor environments or only outside? And the second question is, I think you mentioned something about temperature changes. I don't know if you're measuring those other, like the emissions from like CO, carbon monoxide, within indoor environments. I think I'm an environmental toxicologist, and I know that it is possible that exposure indoor, particularly when they cook with firewood and all that, and this will mainly be with the women, so that can actually be a potential exposure route. Perhaps you should think about that if you've not included that there.
Okay.
All right. Okay. Yes, thank you I will meet with you. So I know, are you from Rwanda? So easy for me. Okay, I'm going to meet with you. So there is the biggest trial of indoor that people are trying to propose on how to intervene on indoor air pollution, called the HAPPIN trial. In Africa, it's only in Rwanda. So I'm hoping to meet. So the methodology that we are using, yes, we have indoor air quality monitors. There are 10 of it. And we plan to monitor because of the variation in terms of cooking and other behavior in the home on different days of the week. So maybe during the week, the wife might be going to work. So when she cooks, and the intensity of the cooking might not be as like the weekend. So we're going to put the indoor air quality monitors at home for 1 week and for different homes for 1 week. And we have the outdoor air quality monitors as well. So for measuring the carbon monoxide, unfortunately, the equipment that will enable us to measure that is very expensive. In fact, one of those equipment is $6,000. So I don't have that. So what we intend to do is to use PM 2.5 as a proxy for indoor air pollution for now. In the future, if we have funding, we could be able to buy expensive equipment to measure that. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. It goes to Dr. Kana as well. I have 2 questions. Is it only in Nigeria, or you're comparing it with other countries in West Africa, based on tribes or ethnic groups? That's one. The second one too is, yes, we know stunting also affects visual acuity. Are you measuring visual acuity as well? Because that's one of the most important aspects of school achievement. So are you measuring that as well? Is there any correlation between your stunting and that as well? Thank you.
Yes. I'm glad to announce that when I was at the NIH, I facilitated the formation of an MOU between Africa and the National Eye Institute. So the hypothesis that we want to test is that, okay, children that are stunted are more at risk of developing myopia during childhood, because right now, when children start school, about 30% of them actually need glasses. And one of the things that I'm trying to explore is the role of environmental factors. So there are also infections like toxoplasmosis, which we don't really screen for during pregnancy, even in my country, that we plan to also examine. So last month, we had a meeting with the president of the Global Eye Genetic Consortium. And next month, we're signing an MOU. So I've been trying to get other colleagues in Africa that we can come together to form what is called the African Eye Genetics Consortium. And the goal actually is to study this, because my study is studying the longitudinal, we'll be observing the children as they grow. So it enables us to see those that are stunted or have impaired growth and development, because not only height, there are other domains of development that we will be measuring. We're working with WHO to pilot a new method of measuring development. And we're hoping that there are other groups around Africa that are looking at other factors that actually are related to stunting. So I'm hoping to leverage on those existing groups to also participate in joint analysis. And possibly we can have a more holistic answer.
Thank you. My question, my comment is also for Dr. Musa Kana. I enjoy the work, but your motivation is a bit troubling. In some places, you might run into conflict with people who are established scientists around the impact of or the effect of macronutrients on stunting. It's pretty much standard, it's been established. But so what I'll suggest you do in your motivation for the work you're doing, talk about other factors that cause stunting, and don't imply that actually macronutrients, there isn't ample evidence that is macronutrients. I think you're going to run into problem there. What you're doing is very valid, it's excellent work, but you look at it as other factors besides macronutrients. And I think that's the way we should broaden the field. All of that, yeah.
Yeah, thank you very much. In fact, I had a very similar question that I kept in case no one asked question. It was about, for example, the kwashiorkor, that is protein malnutrition, that kind of thing. So yeah, thank you very much, Professor. Yeah, so any further questions? I have a small question, and then Dr. Obed has a comment. I have a question to Dr. Dr. Bilgu. Yeah, Dr. Bilgu, excuse me if this is a very naive question because it's far from my area, but how do you actually distribute the fungus on a large scale, like for example, in order to kill these mosquito, and how do you ensure it doesn't harm humans? And also, is there any issue of resistance of these mosquitoes with the fungus? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you very much, Professor. This is not really naive questions. This is really important questions that so first of all, regarding how we are going to apply the fungus, this is really an open question. And this is something that we are really thinking a lot. We want to base our experience on what is on the ground, like with chemical insecticide, as is acting like chemical insecticide. We want to see maybe we're gonna use them as spray in houses, or we can apply them on cloths or nets, like bed nets. But this is really something that we are really working on now. And it's really an important question because it's really working in the lab, but how we're gonna move forward with that on the field, that is really, really a really important question. Yeah. Regarding the pathogenicity for human, I want to reassure you that this fungus is really, really safe for human. And even for some people who are suffering from diseases, asthma, like this, there are a lot of studies in the past showing that this fungus is really, really safe for human. And it's really specific to mosquitoes and is not killing other insects like honeybees and stuff like this. And lastly, it's about
last question was about the resistance.
The resistance, yeah. This is something that we are really working on also, because we, in terms of evolution thinking, if something is really hurting and species is gonna try to find solution also to escape. to these harms. So what we are planning to do is it's among question in our ARISE project. We want to challenge mosquitoes with this fungus, and at each generation, the survival ones, we're gonna breed them and put them in the contact of the fungus, and we're gonna see what we are selecting resistant mosquito species and challenging them to the fungus. This is really an important question also that we are on. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Okay, one last question here before I turn to Dr. Ogega.
Thank you very much. I'm really impressed by the incorporation of capacity building for PhDs and MScs. What I don't know is, do we have a target of how many PhDs we want to train and how many MScs we want to train with these projects? Thank you.
Thank you very much. The question is how many PhDs and how many MSCs we want to train. I see, about the training aspect. Well, I probably have to leave Dr. Ogega to comment on that, and he has another comment. So
thank you very much. That's a very good question. For ARISE, it's very specific. It's at least 2 PhDs and at least 4 master's students for the entire period. So that we're aiming to train around 300 postgraduate students in ARISE alone. UPTI ARISE is not specific. We're opening it up, but at least 1 or 2 masters or PhD students within the project. It's because of the scope of work of each of these projects. But for ARISE program, we are very specific. We need at least 2 to 4 PhDs and 4 to 8 master students. So it's good that, you know, the ARISE grantees or the ARISE fellows are already recruiting. So we will take stock as we move along and report back how many we've been able to train. And about the gender balance, this is only the first part of the presentations. We come back and you'll start by hearing from Dr. Nada here. Then we have Dr. Irene, Dr. Nana should be there somewhere, and so on and so forth. So you'll see more of women in the presentations. And generally speaking, at least 30% of our grantees are women. At least 30, generally speaking. Thank you. So because we're already running behind schedule.
Another group photo, because there were some who weren't there yesterday, and then LFS fellow subscription, Alex will be.
I'll get back to the moderator and then we'll hear from our.
So, all right. Well, so you have an announcement to make? Can I? Sorry, I have to wear my microscope. It's AAS fellow group photo. Okay. Yeah. Outside the room.
Individual photos. Okay. Good morning, everyone. So we're going to do another photo, just AAS fellows. We'll meet outside the room. And then we're also doing individual portrait photos for anyone who'd like that. You'll still meet us outside the room. And then for the fellows, AS fellows want to pay their subscription. Our head of finance and grants is here. His name is Alex Misoy, and he'll be seated here at the back. So anyone who wants to pay their fellow subscription can talk to Alex. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. And I thank everybody here in the audience, especially our keynote speaker, Professor Tamerman, and also the brilliant fellows that presented today. Thank you all, and thanks very much for the questions and the discussion. Thank you, and see you later. Yeah, thank you.
So shall we meet in about 10 minutes time? Yes.
Like this one, like, but there is no, so it's only it's not a panel. No, the panel is in that. So they go through this and then
Excuse me, all fellows, please, AS fellows, please, let's meet outside for the group photo. AS fellows only, group photo outside the meeting room, please.
can see you want me, baby. You know I want you too. Now we're alone together, so what we gonna do? Girl, let me paint your body, be the canvas of my dreams. I wanna have you by any means, yeah. Welcome aboard, girl. Put your seatbelt on, cause we gon' take a ride till the morning. Oh, yeah. Welcome aboard, girl. Put your seatbelt on, cause we gon' take a ride till the morning. Oh, yeah, 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 yeah. There are no limitations, only possibilities. This journey could be endless if only we believe. The taste of pure seduction, feel the pleasure in the air. Your body shakes when we arrive there. Yeah, yeah. Welcome aboard, girl. Put your seatbelt on, cause we gon' take a ride to the morning. Oh, yeah. Welcome aboard, girl. Put your seatbelt on, cause we gon' take a ride to the morning. Oh, welcome, welcome, welcome aboard. 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 Welcome, welcome, welcome aboard.
Attention, please. Good morning. Thanks again for coming back. So just a quick announcement. We have two sessions right now, parallel sessions. The first one is a continuation of what we had in the morning, so presentations on public health. The second session, which is also quite important, is a feedback session for the AS Strategic Plan 2023-2027. So the AS fellows, grantees, our community of the African Academy of Sciences is welcome to join the AS strategy discussions at the next room. So I'm going to ask that those that are doing the presentations on public health or those that are generally interested in that will stay here. And then those that would like to give us feedback on the new strategy that you're trying to develop, we move to the next room. Then when we are done, we come back here. Yeah, I hope that does not cause more confusion. But we continue with public health discussions here. They'll be hearing from some of our researchers. And then the AS strategic plan discussions are happening at the same time, the next room. Thanks. Not all of them. I see Professor here.
Welcome aboard. For the next lifetime, please make sure you are seated comfortably in your favorite position of love. Welcome aboard. The crew and I are very pleased to have you with us as we plan to condense the Milky Way, posturize galaxies for the next millennia with you. So welcome aboard. In case of the unlikely events of the drop of the standard pressure of love, first aid kits, pictures of your loved ones will fall from above you. But please make sure to mend your love first before attending to the love of others.
No, she did it. No question.
You probably were in the transition session, maybe.
So, Dr. Nata, what I will do, I'll try request colleagues from the other side to quickly go through it so that we can all come back soonest. Yeah, but now because of time, I see what you mean. But now we have to do both. We continue.
Hi, everybody. There was a switch between Professor Temmerman and myself, so I will chair this one as well. The first speaker. So here's Professor Temmerman, but I will, replace Professor Temmerman in this session, and then we'll proceed as usual. So this session, we continue the short presentation, 5 minutes. And I remind the speakers to please try to stick to the 5 minutes because we don't have very much time. And please, let's hold the question until the end of the session. So I call on Dr. Nada Abdelaziz, a Rice Fellow from Cairo University, Egypt. Dr. Nada.
Can I have the presentation? Okay, is this the one? Oh, okay, cool. Good afternoon, everyone. This is Nada Abdelaziz, Cairo University. So today I'm gonna take you through my ARISE project, which is a key regulator of immune-driven liver fibrosis during schistosomiasis. So have you guys ever heard about worm infection? Yes. Because this is one of the most common infection worldwide. Actually, there is 1.5 billion people are infected, which represent 1/3 of the human population. Quarter of this infection is actually caused by a parasite known as schistosoma that cause a disease that we know it is known as schistosomiasis. Schistosomiasis infects more than 200 million people worldwide. And it kills 200,000 people every year. 90% of the burden is in Africa. Do you know why those people die? I can take you through how it looks like for the life cycle. So this is the disease of the poorest of the poor. When the people don't have infrastructure, they use the water for sanitation, cleaning, and washing. So if they are infected, you have the eggs coming out in their excretions, in the urine or feces. These eggs hatch looking for a host. And that host, in this case, is the snails. Snails later on give an infective stage known as cercaria that looks for the flesh and blood to infect. Once they get into contact with the skin, they invade, trying to find the blood vessels to get to the hepatic portal circulation. You can see how amazing it looks like, this worm. So you have the male worm, which is a fat guy, having the female inside. This is how they copulate. And when they copulate, they release 300 eggs per day. And these eggs actually is the one convert the
I need to see the camera.
We have this open session on the strategy. We want it to be as open as possible because we're designing the new strategic plan. We should start next year. Finish it this year. The next one and the next one. Actually, we appreciate there's a lot of discussion and stakeholders. One of the challenges we had was that stakeholders were sent out for needs analysis. We also analyzing where we're coming from, where we want to go, what our achievements, what we want to build on, or what we want to transform. We design the whole strategy. So I had my colleague, Lydia, who's connected on we'll give you a framework of what we're thinking about, a framework of what we'd like to see in the next 5 years and maybe to go. But this is very, very, reach any stage. So oh, sorry. Can you hear me now? I thought it was a bit too loud. Okay, all right. So we're very happy that we have
Yeah, so I can
members
put a presentation to come up.
members of the academy. Hopefully, others are also connected. I think this strategy is a very important one.
Yeah.
Not because we haven't had
First.
very good ones. We have, but
Sama sa kautua.
very good strategy. And this new strategy has to be built within the aspirations of the African Union. But if you have the first one, we really have an African Union aspiration. Now, if you have
She must show your screen.
now, if you have analyzation of the SDGs,
I'm waiting on
that one came at the end of the Millennium Development Goals. Now we have the SDGs, which is for people, planet, and prosperity. In Africa, we have 5, so we want to 5. So how do we ensure that the African Academy of Sciences, which is more relevant than ever,
Put it on a more because everyone is suffering because you just keep it the volume of controlling myself.
and we are the voice for Africa. And when we talk about African science, we are the voice. How do we also make sure that we have to see all these young,
sure that all these researches that we are doing actually, is taken up as policy decision making. How do we make ourselves very visible? In fact, one of the questions that I asked, one of the young people that I wanted to Science, who are they? I think we should open that now. Previously, I think it was a club of professors and all. But you can see that it's been popular.
It's already facing on one. It's already on one, I think.
So this whole thing is also just to map up.
There we go. You're moving.
We have a framework, media will present, and then we ask questions. Where do you want us to go? And then we take all this into consideration and also share again. So thank you very much. Oh, okay. So thank you very much. Lydia, are you online? Hi, Lydia.
Yeah.
Hi, Dr. Peggy. Hi, everyone. I'm sorry. I think we've been having some technical issues over here, and I'll be happy to present what we've done so far.
Okay, so please go ahead. You have the floor. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, hopefully you can hear me now. You can hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, yeah, thank you. Okay, good morning, good afternoon, everyone. I don't know from wherever you're logged in, it's I think afternoon Kenyan time, Eastern African time. And thank you for creating time, to attend this interactive session today. So we're happy to have you, and we're excited to present to you our new AS strategic plan draft framework, which is under development. It covers 2023, 2027, and beyond. So our strategy is basically focusing on ensuring that we have growth and development of AS, and and the sustainable development goals to tackle the global challenges and majorly the African level challenges. So I think we have like 1 hour to go, and we thought we would have like 2 hours for this session. I will basically run through like how the process has been, and try to reflect, share with you the output, the framework which you've come out with. And a big thank you to the African Academy of Sciences, the Governing Council, for your input, our AS fellows, affiliates, and grantees for your contribution. So a big thank you to our stakeholders, a number of partners, funders, some member states, of course, our team, African Secretariat staff. You've been amazing. And without you, this was not going to be possible. So I know like in our meetings, we have our executive director and our IAS staff and some of our fellows who contributed largely to this. And some of the questions, the contribution you're going to input, I think will be able to be taken. And we have our rapporteur, Gladys, is in the house. So I look forward to really having this interactive session. So we'll present the outcome of what has been done so far. So it will be great also to hear your thoughts, your views, and further inputs to improve this document. This is not like our academy documents. This is the document which is representing, the researchers and all the scholars on the continent. And we want to amplify your voice to be able to be heard out there, to influence policy, and also contribute, to the well-being of the African people and, the global aspects which we are focusing on. So I will quickly run to what we've done so far. But before then, I would just want to say the AS development, AS strategic plan development process, it has been a journey whereby we were looking more generally on the situation analysis. We did a lot of desk review on the past documents, including the global frameworks, the African strategies, Agenda 2063. We reached out to various stakeholders, whereby we had a survey where they're able to contribute and also give their input, what has been done so far, and where they would like to see where the role which the academy is playing in taking forward transforming lives through science. So we also analyzed various strategic focus areas. We are looking at also the current trends under development. And we came up with some renewed vision, mission, values, and also renewed strategic focus areas. And in this session, I will outline some of the aspects we came up with. So if you can see my screen, we have our renewed vision, mission, and core values. So our AS vision, it's central to our strategic plan in the science. Science is the key driver to the sustainable development, of our mighty continent, Africa. So if you look at our new vision, we are it's central to this focus in terms of content. We are talking about we transform lives through science, and we cannot do this without contextualizing this to the African aspect, and also integrating innovation and technology. So this will bring the change we want to see in our African people. So our renewed vision is on transforming lives through science, technology, and innovation, as you can see. And, if you look at our mission, why we exist, when we are asking ourselves, we can't do this alone. So we want to be the voice. We cannot do this alone. We need to articulate why we exist very well. So we want to leverage, use the existing STI resources to get us to where we really want to go. So we are looking at, how do we work with also in leveraging, working with the member states, working with the scientists of all walks in life. We want to leverage on the existing ongoing STI initiatives and seeing how we can be able to achieve this. So upholding to this, we uphold our greatest standards, our values to achieve this. So, looking at these values, we uphold integrity as the central to our delivery on this. We want to be transparent, accountable, and cultivate respect in everything we're doing. We want to be inclusive, in terms of diversity, how we work with all walks of life of researchers spread across the continent, Pan-African focus, and inclusivity in terms of trying to get everyone, we are talking about other aspects of people living with disability. Everyone, just to make sure everyone has a voice. Excellence, we recognize excellence. I think looking at what we are good at in terms of recognizing excellence through our fellows, the affiliates, and also we really uphold strong on innovative ideas for impact, which we need to take up to the policy. Empathy, we value people, and additionally, we added collaboration. Listening to the presentations which have been done so far over the past few days is about partnership. It's about communication. It's about also responding to, to the research needs, equity, and empathy. These are the values which we believe in, which were hold high for us to be able to transform lives through science. So moving to the next level on the key considerations, we looked at the global and regional frameworks, which to shape our strategic focus areas for the African we want. So looking at the key consideration on the SDGs, which we highlighted, I think I've clearly outlined, we're looking at, we are contributing to SDG 2 to end hunger, achieve security, and improve nutrition, and promoting sustainable agriculture. We also considered SDG 3, which is talking about health lives, SDG 4, to ensure inclusive and equitable quality education, SDG 7, more focusing on ensuring access to affordable, reliable, sustainable, and modern energy for all. We talk about inequality, SDGs 10, to reduce inequality within and among countries, and we want to see like how best we can also like have a well-represented voice for every corner on every corner of the continent. And there's SDGs 13, whereby we talking about climate change and impacts and how best we can take an urgent action on this. And SDG 16 on promoting peaceful and inclusive societies. Central to that, we looked at also the various trends which that the African Academy of Sciences is so like really focused on. You're talking about climate change. You look at what has been happening in COP27, including the impact of global warming, biodiversity, and other frameworks we've looked at is on Agenda 2063. Sorry, I'm just trying to go faster so that at least we have more time for discussion. So Agenda 2063, TISA 2024. We also have the Continental Strategy for Education, East African Community 2050 Development Agenda, Paris Agreement, and the Continent Strategy for Education, Strengthen Capacity in Mathematics. So on these aspects, this is what we came up with, like the top outline on the strategic focus areas. So one is on global health, which majorly a few components which we are going to look at. So on infectious diseases, we're talking about maternal health. Maternal is neonatal health, nutrition, and communicable diseases, mental health. I think these are the various aspects which the Academy is going to look at in the new strategy 2023-2027 and beyond. We have the green transition. We're talking about climate change. We're talking about water and oceans, agriculture, food security, energy, and biodiversity. So central to this is on the capacities for research and higher education. So we have various aspects. We are talking about skill set. We are talking about natural sciences, applied work, knowledge translation. This we really need to strengthen further. So the other bit on the strategic focus areas is on technology and innovation. So we talk about digital health, biotechnology, data science, artificial intelligence, infrastructure, information, and mobile telephone. So if you look at all these aspects, we discussed and, realized some of the cross-cutting areas, which include gender, youth, policy, and governance as the top areas we're focusing on. So if you look at our strategy equally, so we lumped it on three strategic thematic areas: our people, whereby we provide an enabling environment that cultivates learning and enhances growth. So our strategic objective, we focus on ensuring growth and learning culture that attracts and develops and retains the best talent. Secondly, we focus on developing relevant communication channels to the right and beneficiary, to the right audience for research and development, and embrace a collaborative workplace approach. So the other second strategic theme is on partnership. How do we, our goal is to nurture and expand and build partnership engagement to transform STI in Africa. So how do we do this? We focus on strengthening an engagement with the key global and Pan-African partners, including African governments and other key stakeholders. So one aspect on this is how Best AS can, position itself to be a global influence, having also like global players really working with us to transform lives here. Diversify, also we need to diversify funding and partner collaboration. That's also the key aspect. If we set up, strengthen the first component, then we'll be able to diversify our fund, partner-based collaboration. We also focus in the same aspect of partnership, optimizing engagement with our fellows and affiliates in growing partnership portfolio. We recognize that our fellows and affiliates are central, they are key to partnership, to really translating this knowledge, to uptake to the member state, to Africa, to transform lives. So one thing aspect is like, how best can we engage that? How can they play a role in trying to really make these changes on the ground, in the grassroots level, and we grow value and enhance visibility? Because our understanding sometimes is that we really talking big, we need to everyone to be part of this journey and try to support. In terms of excellence, our goal is to support the scientists, institutions, and programs to undertake relevant research. So one is we plan to initiate relevant programs that address development gaps across Africa and translate science into products, policies, and practices. The second objective in excellence is to strengthen the African research institution to become excellent and globally competitive. We also focus on having regional representation and support scientists to do their best science across the continents, because whereby we have the 5 offices. So this is the whole, if you can see my screen, I think this is the summary of our strategic framework, the strategic plan draft framework and development. And at this level, I'll be happy to really this is the recap of all the components which we've been doing, putting together, trying to really strengthen this. And from this roadmap framework, we are working on an implementation plan to make this a reality. And, we are happy to really hear from you on your opinion, what should we as key contribution as it works towards, fostering growth and innovation here, what would you as the key stakeholders would like as to accomplish in the coming 5 years and beyond? And also we want to hear from you the kind of programs you want to see. So I would really want, if it was possible, timing where you go into groups to tackle some of these key aspects we are really focusing on. But I'm just so happy to really open this this discussion for us to quickly feedback into this draft strategic plan framework. Thank you. Over to you. Sorry, I can't hear you, Dr. Peggy. I think from the distance.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you from a distance. Okay.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you.
All right. Thank you very much, Lydia. So colleagues, this is, as she said, we're building on, we're not reinventing the wheel. We're just taking the good practices that we already have. So this is very, 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 it needs a very rough stage, which has been developed in the last, is it a month or?
I think that's what years.
It's about 2 months.
2 months now.
Always.
But I know there's a whole lot to be done, in terms of, as you say, the other one that we developed was based on the outcomes to really identify what we're doing. But we haven't got there yet. What is presented now is just a framework. Do we agree with this framework, or do we want to move elsewhere? Or what other, recommendations do you want to give? We re-emphasize the values because of the experience we've had in a few, I think last year or two. So for us, the values have to be re-echoed. We also brought in the area of the strategic, the SDGs. But Lydia, what is missing in goal 7 is STI, very key. Because that's the center of what we're doing. So STI, so add goal 7, and then we also need goal 17, which is partnership. It's also key. So we need to add goal 17, which is very key. And I think maybe poverty reduction or whatever, but it's about 17, yes, 17 crucial. If you're talking about partnership, you need to have goal 17. If you're talking about science, technology, innovation, you need to have goal 7, which is in the middle, driving the whole SDGs. So colleagues, comments?
Thank you.
Yes.
The comments we made are relevant, but then she should go back to, not this one, it's the previous slide. If she can go back to that, we can then work our way down to this one, where she had the SDGs.
To go back to the SDGs.
Yeah. So that's where those were your comments. Make them again